Welcome to Conversations with Cox and Kielseth, and to be more specific, that is filmmaker Alex Cox and myself, film curator Pablo Kielseth. Alex will join us by phone from his home in Oregon, while I sneak away from my office to call him from one of the projection booths used by the International Film Series, which has been screening foreign and independent movies at CU Boulder since 1941. We will keep our chats to about 20 minutes as we discuss whatever movie-related topics grab our fancy. Thanks for joining us.
Okay, action.
So, back here with Alex Cox, and I thought what would be fun to talk about today is looking back at the titles that you talked about and introduced back in your days at Moviedrome. And I believe
absolutely.
So that was. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what Moviedrome was, because maybe some people don't know it, but give them a little context and background about that one.
Moviedrome was a BBC series on BBC Television, BBC Two, which used to be on Sunday evening. And it was a slot that they filled with films that they had usually in their inventory already. They already had these under license, but hadn't been able to figure out how to categorize them or where to place them. And so under the rubric of Moviedrome, the subtitle of which I guess was like the cult movie season, a whole diverse bunch of films got screened, some of which were really good. And I was the presenter of this series of films for about 5 years, I think.
Well, I guess it makes sense to have a cult film director talk about cult films. Did you see all of them, or were there a few that you might not have seen? Because there's quite a few.
No, I had to watch them all because I was supposed to critique them before the screening, so I had to see all of them.
So I've got a theory that, because I just wanted to go chronologically, sequentially. And I have a feeling and a theory that we're only going to get through the first 5, but we'll see, because we only got 20 minutes, right? So, but I'll be curious. I'm going to dive right in. And I'm just going off of this list that I cribbed off of the internet, so I'm presuming that is the correct sequential order of these. Did it start with Diva? Not Diva. What was it? The Wicker Man? It started with The Wicker Man.
I think that was the first film that we showed, and then Diva was the second film. And so it was interesting because I wasn't really keen on either of them. I wasn't really a Wicker Man fan.
Actually, I think according to this list, it was The Wicker Man and then Electric Glide in Blue, which would make sense.
Electric Glide in Blue, different. Electric Glide in Blue, I was a big fan of, so I'm sure I had.
And that makes sense because Wicker Man was 1973, and so was Electric Glide in Blue. So I think that would make sense, probably.
Might have been a coincidence too, because the films were all chosen by Nick Jones, who was a producer at the BBC and who had come up with the idea to do it, and who had hired me to be the presenter. And he was working with the material that they had, and stuff but I don't know that the programming was actually sequential. I think that probably they could show the films in any order or cancel a screening if it seemed inappropriate.
Right. Well, we'll go ahead and start with The Wicker Man, and I'm curious. It sounds like you were not a huge fan, although I think this was Sir Christopher Lee's. He considered it to be one of his greatest roles.
Sure. What do we know? I just didn't think it was like that. I mean, who was the name of the Scandinavian beauty who was in it? Anyway, she was very beautiful, but even so, I didn't. And the ending is good, but I just wasn't as big a fan of it as some people.
Are you familiar?
So moving on from The Wicker Man, we'll get through more than 5.
Okay. Well, so Electric Glide in Blue, we actually have a little bit of a Colorado connection to that one.
We knew the director.
That's right. You actually met with him.
We both met him. Jim Guercio, who used to live in the mountains above Boulder.
Yeah, he was the chief executive of Caribou Ranch, which was a very famous place where a lot of recording artists who were connected with Universal, like Elton John and Earth, Wind and Fire and so on. And there was a lot of activity records that were made up there, just a few miles west of where I am right now. But I don't think I actually met Guercio in person. I think I met his son.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. But you actually met him in person, and you had some stories to tell, if I recall correctly.
Well, I met him because it's interesting because he's moved on now. He's moved to, I guess, to somewhere in California. But he was the director of only one film, I think, which was Electric Light in Blue. And he was replaced on the next film he was doing, which was Tom Horn, a cowboy film with Steve McQueen. About the last cowboy hung for murder, or something, I think.
But you actually... Yeah, go ahead.
And anyway, so and so he was really kind of, pissed off about not being able to complete the direction of this film that he put a lot of time in and cast Steve McQueen in. So and that was a kind of a shame because I think on Electric Light and Blue he did a really good job. I think he was a pretty good director, very promising.
Yeah, I remember you were a fan of the movie. I remember seeing it after you recommended it to me, and it was. God, how did it start? It had a really kind of a very unusual opening. Was he doing push-ups or something? I can't remember.
Oh, it's all him. He's doing he's a sort of fetishistic cop, but he's also like really, really short. He's exactly the same height as Alan Ladd, but he's a great character, and very muscular and does 100 pull-ups every morning, and he's a famous stud around town and gets in trouble with everybody and with his superiors, and while seeking out the truth, So it's a good American police / detective story. He becomes a detective for a little while. He gets off the motorcycle, gets to wear a cowboy hat and a suit, but then he ends up back on the motorcycle again.
Well, wasn't one of the reasons you kind of liked it? Because I think you almost described it to me as basically a Western, except instead of horses, you had motorcycles, right? It's
that, but it's also the anti-Easy Rider. It's like at one point in the film there, the cops are in target practice and they're like blasting away at Peter Fonda and Dennis Hopper on their Harleys, in the range. And so it's that too. It's a sort of a reactionary riposte to the hippie movement and the hippie protagonists of Easy Rider. Which is great, it's very entertaining. It's like Rio Bravo was a riposte to High Noon.
Did when you talked to Guercio, was there any because you were trying to get him to help out the cinema studies program at that point, I think, in some way, shape, or form. I don't think anything ever came of that, but
no, I guess not. Unless there's a Guercio building going up, you never know.
My last connection, when I was talking to the son, I was in the warehouse where they were basically. They stuffed it with all the things that had been up at Caribou Ranch, and it included this 10-foot tall stuffed grizzly bear.
Wow.
And he was telling me how that grizzly bear was there at Caribou Ranch, where they would have the musicians, and then they would show them 16 millimeter movies in that same space. And they showed Earth, Wind, and Fire, Night of the Living Dead on 16 millimeter at night. And as city people, they weren't used to being up in the woods. And
great!
Yeah, and the movie kind of freaked them out. And they were told that if they wanted to avoid being eaten by a grizzly, when they walked out to their cabins, they needed to do a specific kind of old tribal Indian dance that would supposedly spooked off the bears. A very amusing story, and I was listening to all these stories because they gave us, the Guercios gave Cinema Studies a bunch of 16 millimeter films to check out and inspect for quality. I thought it was going to be a donation, but they ended up taking them all back, which is a shame because there were some really nice prints there. But anyway, that is our local connection to Electric Light and Blue. But we moved from
there. Which was all shot in Arizona.
Yeah.
Shot all over Arizona.
And then, let's see, I'm moving down the list here. I see that Diva was also featured on Moviedrome.
And that was another film that I wasn't very keen on. But the thing was, it was kind of amazing for that television presentation mode because I was able to say I didn't like it. I could say, the film that's coming up really is stupid. And then I would find some mitigating factor. I would say, but it's an interesting moment where such and such happens.
Right.
Or it stars the very memorable X, you know. And it was fun in that regard because it was kind of genre breaking in terms of TV shows because you didn't have to pretend everything was perfect.
Well,
like the Smithsonian
I
Institution.
I have a soft spot for Diva because I saw it when I was in Germany, and I was in Germany in Hanover for a year, and that's where I really kind of got my education for calendar film houses because it screened at one of the calendar film houses there.
Oh yeah, and now you run one of those.
And now I run one, but it was Diva was a big deal on the art house circuit. I mean, it made a big splash, and then the director went on to do Betty Blue, which also was a big art house, you know, to do. So those were they boosted the, you know, attendance for.
Oh yeah, well that's good. Anything that boosts the attendance. I mean, there's one scene in Diva where they have a packet of gitane on the floor, and then they pull out, and it's revealed that the whole room is coloured in the same colour scheme as the packet of cigarettes. And I thought that was a triumph of art direction. You know, so that was what I could point to in my introduction.
Good. Oh, so that was kind of where you went. And what's the name of the assassin was very memorable too. How do you say? Is it Dominique Pignon?
I don't know who it was.
He was. I would later fondly remember him from Delicatessen, which is sort of a favorite of mine.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm looking in my Moviedrome guide here to see if it says what his name was.
Oh, what's this guide that you have?
These were things that were published by the BBC or in association with the BBC. They published I think one book of the first two seasons and another book of the third and fourth season.
Oh, cool.
And, yeah.
Now remind me. So
I'll send them to you.
Moviedrome went from when to when? It was 88 to when? To when?
Something like that, yeah. 88. Yes.
Did it go all the way?
I did it for about 5 years, and then another guy did it for 2 or 3 years afterwards. So it probably had an 8-year run altogether.
I see.
Like that.
So you were talking about the movies there for the first 5 years only. Got it. Yeah.
Yes, and then I was, but both of these guides that they did are from when I was doing it.
So I'm a little surprised about this next title, just because I know that you're not a big horror film. I love horror films, but I know you're not too crazy about them. Razorback, 1984.
Yeah, I don't remember it at all. It was. I think there was some giant pig eating people or something like that. And it was fine, you know.
Sounds good to me.
It didn't stick in my memory.
This was also the director, Russell Mulcahy. I might be mispronouncing that. He also directed Highlander as well as.
Yes, he was a guy from rock videos. He'd done a lot of rock videos.
That's it, right.
And then he did Highlander, and I think this was his first feature.
So now I almost wonder if we might have even touched on the next one in our last conversation, because it was directed by John Milius. It's his surfing movie, Big Wednesday.
We didn't talk about it, but funnily enough, Phil Solomon and I both love Big Wednesday. I mean, the late Phil Solomon. It was very funny because when I went for my interview at CU Boulder,
yeah,
I said to Phil, my favorite thing that John Milius ever did was Big Wednesday, and he goes, "Oh, it's one of my favorite movies," And it's odd because, in some ways it's a ridiculous film. Todd ridicules it. Who knows where the wind comes from? But it's such if you like surfing, or if you just approve of surfing and admire it, it's an excellent film.
Well,
so I think that was something that Phil Solomon and I both had in common.
Alex, I'm trying to picture you on a surfboard, and I'm not getting the image. Is that?
No, I got up on a surfboard one time and immediately went off. It's not. I had a boogie board and did that kind of thing. But proper surfing is a skill and something very admirable.
Now, what I do know about you is that you were once pretty big on riding motorcycles, so maybe that's why Electric Glide in Blue was something that connected with you.
Well, that's why I would be more interested in Electric Glide. But you see, I admire surfing just because it is so noble. It's better than any fool can get on a motorcycle. But
yeah.
How many people can ride a surfboard?
Now, you stopped riding motorcycles when? I think you had a big spill, didn't you?
I got a wreck on a motorcycle and broke my foot in it. That was on my first BMW. But in spite of that, I got 2 more BMWs, and they're excellent motorcycles. And I think I rode motorcycles for about a decade or something. But then you gradually kind of. I remember I had gone to the Cannes Film Festival. And I had taken my motorcycle down on the train from London, and then put it on, and then ridden it to the Cannes Festival. All very cool, very chic. And then I was going to ride down to Almeria in the south of Spain because we were going to do a video down there for Joe Strummer. So I set off on my motorcycle, and the cinematographer and Dick Rude, one of the actors from Sid and Nancy and Straight to Hell, in a car, they were also driving down to Almeria. And I remember, I was on the motorcycle on and on and on and on the Autopista, looking over at Tom Richmond and Dick Rude, and they're sitting in the little red car that they'd rented, and they're smoking and listening to music and changing tapes and stuff and laughing. And I'm on the back of the motorcycle, 300 kilometers still to go, going past Benidorm and just thinking, it would be more fun to be in a car. And so the last motorcycle that I had, I left in Almeria on the set of Straight to Hell, and I haven't seen it since.
Did you say, so you were shooting some music videos, is that right?
I shot one music video down there in Almeria for Joe Strummer, and it was like the further adventures of Sid Vicious, if he escaped from jail. And Gary Oldman was in it. It was called Love Kills, and you might even be able to find it on the internet. It's rare, and it was also extensively re-edited by the record company and made incomprehensible. But there is a version which follows Joe Strummer's original screenplay for the video, which is sort of pretty cool. Like, what would Sid have done if he'd escaped from jail and fled to Mexico?
Did you do any other music videos, or was that
I
a
did
one-off?
a video for the Pogues called A Prayer of Brown Eyes.
Yeah.
And I did one for Iggy Pop and Debbie Harry called
yes, I've
Did
seen
You
that
Ever?
one. Yes, I saw that one, right.
And I did one for the Levelers, British band. And I did one for Kid Carpet. Well, that was more a photo montage. It didn't have any performance elements, but it did have it was to one of his songs. I can't think of any other videos that I've done.
Yeah.
I think that's
you were pretty close with Joe Strummer, right?
In the days of post-production of Sid and Nancy through post-production of Walker, I spent a lot of time with him. He was a great creative partner, and it was also a period when he was being very creative. He was hugely productive.
And you were both, it probably didn't hurt that you were both politically sort of simpatico.
Well, they had made that album Sandinista because Margaret Thatcher had suggested that the word Sandinista should be banned since it was a terrorist group, and so the Clash produced this triple album and called it Sandinista just to annoy her.
Good for them.
That was pretty cool. Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Good for them. And now, wasn't it, because you were also friends with, is it Chumbawamba? Is that right?
Yes. Oh, not all of them, because there were about 9, and I don't think I even met them all.
I'm thinking of that because what happened when Margaret Thatcher passed away? I thought, didn't they actually come out with a song? Or I'm trying to remember now.
There was a song to be played on Margaret Thatcher's grave, yes. But the big hit when Margaret Thatcher died was Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead.
In England? Or
yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean, as in terms of downloaded music, it was by. I mean, they had to lie about it and just keep quiet. It was like outselling everything for weeks.
Interesting.
When Thatcher died. Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead from The Wizard of Oz.
Okay, well, we're going to move on back to Moviedrome. I didn't want to get you too far off the path, but this next movie I know is one that you and I both very much hold in high regard. Fat City, John Huston.
Oh, it's a good film. Fat City is excellent film, yeah.
Yeah. With,
one of the last films of John Huston.
Yeah, and featuring Stacy Keach and Jeff Bridges, with cinematography by the great Conrad Hall. Yeah.
Yeah.
That every time I think of that.
Also shot Electric Light.
Oh yeah, that's right. There's a Conrad Hall connection there.
Yeah.
Yeah. The ending to that movie, I don't want to say anything in case anyone listening would like to go out and see it, which I highly recommend they do, but it just packs such a existential punch. And it's the kind of, that movie, that kind of a movie about people who are really down on their luck, and it's just so gritty and so, I don't know, so touching.
Yeah, it is. It's a very good film.
Yeah, and I don't know, on Moviedrome, did you guys ever package movies so that they were like back to back or double features, or were they one-offs?
I don't think there were double features. I don't remember. I think maybe towards the last year we may have done a couple of double features, because I was trying to do a double feature of Salvatore Giuliano and The Mattei Affair, 2 films by Francesco Rossi, but that didn't come about. I shot the introductions for them, but they didn't acquire the films.
I was only wondering if they did that, because the next movie that I see on this list is happens to also, like Fat City, this one happens to also have Jeff Bridges, and it's actually precedes it, because it's The Last Picture Show, Peter Bogdanovich, which is 1971. Fat City was 1972. There's a lot
of good actors in the last movie. I mean, it's really an ensemble piece. And
The Last Picture Show, you mean? Yeah.
So, I'm sorry, The Last Picture Show, rather.
Yeah. I know one of the things that one of your signature. How can I say this? I know that you are not big on sentimentality, I should say. So how does that fit with The Last Picture Show? Were you still able to enjoy that one?
Oh, no, I forget what it's about. I just remember there's a scene with Ben Johnson where he talks a lot, to some kids by the old fishing hole,
Yeah.
And Bogdanovich kind of moves in very slowly on a track, without zooming, without changing the lens or anything. And it's Bogdanovich's homage to Ford. I mean, he's making a film in the John Ford style, which I think he did again with Paper Moon, and nobody else tried that. I don't think apart from Ford, nobody dared to do a film. Certainly by the '60s, when everybody was shooting in color and widescreen, that it was outrageous to shoot a film in the Academy ratio in black and white in that very austere style of John Ford.
Now, what exactly makes it in the style of John Ford? I just want to make sure that I'm getting it exactly right.
There's a very specific style to his filmmaking, isn't there? I mean, Ford shot mostly on the tripod. We think of, we remember his black and white films, even though he shot a lot of films in color and they look very beautiful. But you just think of the images of Fort Apache and The Informer and The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance and this very austere style, no unnecessary close-ups, very little camera movement, unless of course you're following a stagecoach.
Now you had a term for, because you kind of developed your own sort of style, especially I remember in Highway Patrolmen, where you would hold a shot and it would go for a long time. But what was the term you had for that?
They were moving masters, and that was a sort of a Mexican style at that time, especially in the films of Arturo Ripstein. Yeah. And they would call it plano sequencia.
That's it. Yeah, got
like
it.
A single sequence. And the idea was that you'd shoot the whole scene in one take, but it wouldn't necessarily be on a tripod. I mean, most of the shots in El Petriero are handheld.
Right. I will never forget that shot where it gets kind of bloody, and then you're going down. You're following him down the street, and you never break, and you just follow. And I was remembering, I was trying to figure out how you did that. It was just a really beautiful, I think, example of that what you're just talking about right there.
When he runs through the desert and then
Yes.
when he runs down the road and then finds his friend's car destroyed and then runs into the desert.
Yes.
That was the cinematographer Miguel Garzón was very strong, and he could hold this very, very heavy camera and magazine on his shoulder the whole day, and very strong. And so he was kind of held on at the front of a pickup truck with ropes, which was being pushed along by his grips. And at one point, they put the brake on the pickup truck and let go of the ropes, and Miguel stepped down off the little platform on the front of the truck and started just walking along behind Roberto Sosa, the actor, and walked like kind of paralleling him into the desert, and then ended up, just tilting down manually to the two shot of the hero and his dead friend.
Such a great shot.
It was brilliant, incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, and for those listening, we are talking about Highway Patrolmen, which Alex directed and was released in 1991, and it got a re-release not too long ago as well.
Got a re-release last year from Kino Lorber. It played in certain select cinemas and might still be playing.
Yeah, got a great write-up in the New York Times, so congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And it looks like, now we're out of time. I will mention, so I'll toss one last Moviedrome title in to you, and I have not seen it, so this one's up to you. The Hired Hand by Peter Fonda, 1971, and it's starring Peter Fonda and Warren Oates. I'm surprised I haven't seen it. It sounds great. I love Warren Oates.
After the success of Easy Rider, Universal decided that they were going to do a slate of indie youth films, both of those words in inverted commas, in order to cash in on what Corman had achieved and what Dennis Hopper and his partners had achieved in Easy Rider. And so several filmmakers, I think 5 filmmakers, all got to make a movie for Universal for $1 million or less. One of them was Dennis Hopper with The Last Movie.
Uh-huh.
One of them was Monty Hellman with Two-Lane Blacktop.
Yep.
One was Frank Perry with Diary of a Mad Housewife. And one was Peter Fonda with this film, The Hired Hand, which is a sort of a rather slow-moving, nice-looking. I think it was shot by Laszlo Kovacs.
Vilmos Zsigmond. I'm probably
Vilmos Zsigmond, sorry.
Yeah.
Vilmos Zsigmond. Sorry. It looks very nice and
Yeah.
very artistic and very rather slow. It's an Oter cowboy film. Cowboys hanging around in the corral,
So that would actually be a good as a programming idea. 5 movies, that right there, you'd have an interesting selection of. What would you title that? Because you said Universal, right? Was trying to cash in on.
Yeah, and then of course inevitably they lost faith in all the films and didn't support any of them, and none of them did any business.
Okay.
But Universal's failures.
Oh well,
But they were good. They were all. Yeah. Well, I don't know if they were all good, but it was certainly an interesting selection.
Well,
from a
now
bunch of very
if you
good
were
directors.
if you were to give those, if you were to put them in the order of which ones were your favorite, and if you're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which would you put at the top for those?
I
5?
don't know, because I don't really try to put things in like an order like that, because it's just like it become you're having a mad contest in your mind, and it's all good. They're all good films in different ways.
Sure.
I think The Last Movie, as opposed to The Last Picture Show, which is also very good. The Last Movie is quite a work of genius and excellence, and Dennis Hopper's best film. I think Two-Lane Blacktop is very good.
Right.
And Diary of a Mad Housewife, they're all good films.
Yeah.
So I think they all are worthy of our attention, because it surprised me when I was teaching at CU, and I was teaching a class of third-year film students, and none of them had seen Easy Rider. Yeah. And this was a film of crucial importance in 1968, a year of significant importance.
And it just had its Easy Rider just had its 50 on July 14th, which brings us back to Harry Dean Stanton's birthday. Now, speaking of people that just passed, I know, we just had from Blade Runner, yes, Rutger Hauer passed away. So no, it's just, and again, it's just a coincidence, I know, but given that he's best known for his role in Blade Runner and for that amazing scene at the end,
his death scene, yes,
the death scene, yeah, the fact that it was that he died in Blade Runner in a time setting back then that was 2019, and it comes full way around.
Wow.
Yeah, full way around. All right. Well, I can't wait to talk about more Moviedrome films with you if you're still game for doing a little bit more of that, or we can change the theme up. Yeah, but you got so many good movies.
Well, let's speak again next week.
Sounds good, Alex. Great to talk to you, as always.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Jason.
Thanks, Jason. Jason's our sound guy, so we're very thankful for his help on this. All right, Alex. We'll talk later. Say hi to Todd for me.
I will. Bye for now.
All right. Ciao.
And cut. Okay, that's a wrap.
Thanks again for joining Alex Cox and myself today. I'd like to thank Jason Phelps for handling the audio and Ted Thacker for letting us use the intro to his song, The Ballad of Slim Cessna, for the musical cues that bookend these conversations. Don't forget to go out there and watch movies in a larger-than-home venue. It's what brings us all together to see movies the way they were meant to be seen, on the big screen as we sit next to strangers, neighbors, and friends.